Part 6. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 51. Chapter 51, Being Trapped in His Arms. That's a good relationship. Jishu heard this and glanced at his brat with disgust, then took Lu Ning's hand and the two started chatting affectionately. Lu Xian looked at the two people chatting happily, and then thought of the disgusted look in his mother's eyes when she looked at him. Task, ever since he brought that girl home, he has lost more and more status in this family. Jishu didn't care about the mood of his brat. He was too big-hearted to really care about it. After chatting with Lu Ning for a while, she let the two children play by themselves while she went to the kitchen to prepare the evening meal. Lu Ning followed and wanted to help, but was kicked out by Jishu. Let's have fun during the holidays. Aunt Ji is in charge of the kitchen, so I don't need your help. Yeah, you go play with Xian, and I'll help your Aunt Ji, even Lu Yu said with a smile. Lu Ning was kicked out by the two of them. Lu Xian was lying on the sofa. His long legs had nowhere to rest because they were too long. They could only rest on the corner of the coffee table. When he saw Lu Ning being driven out of the kitchen, he lazily said, "It's okay, little girl. Look at my dad. Mom is so coaxed by you that she barely treats you like your own daughter. No, I don't think any biological daughter will be treated like you. After all, this is how my biological son is treated." Lu Ning put away the smile on her face, glanced at him and said, "It's my fault that Aunt Ji and Uncle Lu like me. As for why you are not lovable, I think you should reflect on yourself." Yes, you are the only one who pleases me." This girl now likes to quarrel with him more and more, but when you please them both, do you want to please me too? Lu Ning, I don't think it's necessary. Lu Xian, no, you do. Lu Ning rolled her eyes and was too lazy to pay attention to him. She saw Lu Xian glance at his cell phone, then stood up from the sofa and called her, "Let's go." Where to go? Lu Ning raised her eyes and glanced at him doubtfully. Lu Xian put away his cell phone and said, "It's still early for dinner. I'll take you out to play." "I don't want to go," Lu Ning refused. "Let's go." As a result, he was dragged out of the door by the other party. Coming out of the community, Lu Ning looked at the other person and said, "Lu Xian, where are you taking me? You will know when you go there." Finally, the two stopped at the door of a billiard room. "Third brother, you are finally here." As soon as the two of them entered the room, Shangzi immediately noticed Lu Xian walking in front and greeted him immediately. Chunan, Shen Yu, and others also stopped what they were doing. As soon as Shan Shen finished greeting Lu Xian, he noticed Lu Ning walking behind him. His eyes lit up and he ran over. "Sister Ning, you're here too." Lu Xian looked at the doggy smile on the opponent's face and felt it was a bit annoying for some reason. He kicked the opponent on the and said, "What nonsense? Let's just play a game." He then turned around and asked Lu Ning, "Do you want to play?" "I can't." Lu Ning shook her head. "It's okay, I'll teach you." Lu Xian walked to the side and picked up a billiard cue, then waved to Lu Ning, "Come here." "Forget it." Lu Ning glanced at everyone's playing postures and didn't want to imitate them. "What's the point? I'm afraid I won't be able to teach you when I have a brother here." Lu Xian thought she was worried that she wouldn't be able to learn, so he directly put the billiard cue into the girl's hand, and then pulled the girl to the front of the billiard table. Lu Xian held the table with one hand, and passed around her with the other hand to hold the club. Lu Ning was petite, so almost her whole body was trapped in his arms. End of this chapter. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 52. Chapter 52, The appearance is disfigured, you have to take responsibility. The two of them were touching each other, so close that even their breathing was entangled with each other. Lu Ning's eyelashes trembled slightly, and she almost held her breath for a moment, feeling her whole body tense. Lu Xian didn't notice anything wrong with this posture at first. He held the club and told her the rules and essentials of movements for a long time. Seeing that she didn't respond, he couldn't help but lower his head and said, "Do you understand? It doesn't matter if you don't understand. Let me show you first." Then he grabbed the girl's hand and leaned down. As a result, the two of them got closer. Lu Ning felt her cheeks heat up and subconsciously wanted to escape, but Lu Xian grabbed both hands and held them firmly in front of her chest and said, "Don't move around. The most important thing in playing table tennis is that the angle must be accurate and the hands must be steady. If you move around like this, it's easy to miss it." Lu Ning had the urge to throw the pool cue directly at his head. But it's not convenient to do it in front of everyone. She could only absent-mindedly let the guy grab her hand and lead her to choose an angle. And after Lu Xian grabbed her hand and hit two balls, he gradually felt something strange. On his chest was the girl's soft body. The two of them were so close that he could almost feel all the curves of the other person. And from his angle, he could clearly see her long curly eyelashes, white and tender ear tips, and slender neck, plus the lingering sweet scent of her body, ironing every nerve in him. Lu Xian couldn't help but feel a little distraught. "I feel my heartbeat is speeding up inexplicably. Are you two playing ball or torturing a dog?" At this moment, the voice of the statement next to them suddenly sounded, and the two people who were originally absent-minded suddenly came back to their senses. Lu Ning hurriedly pulled her hand away, but she used too much force. The club suddenly lifted back, and a bang was heard. Lu Xian was in a daze when he was hit the forehead by the club in the girl's hand. The girl hurriedly withdrew from his arms, and in her panic, she tripped over the other end of the club. Lu Xian couldn't help but take a breath. He held the club steady with one hand and supported her waist with the other, saying, "Why are you panicking?" "Ahem, let me go first." Lu Ning lowered her head and avoided his gaze. Lu Xian glanced at her and let her go. He walked to the mirror and took a look. He found that his forehead was red. Then he turned to Lu Ning and said quietly, "Your appearance is disfigured. You have to take responsibility." After Lu Ning stepped away from his arms, the heat on her face gradually subsided. Hearing this, she glared at him and said, "What are you talking about?" "Ahem, that's not what I meant." At this time, Lu Xian also realized that his words were a bit arrogant. To avoid embarrassment, the two simply skipped the topic. Lu Xian picked up another club and said, "Forget it, you should just stand aside and watch my brother play. Lu Xian is skilled in his movements and has superb golf skills, especially his crisp and neat posture when making a hole-in-one. I have to say, he is quite handsome. It actually makes people unable to take their eyes away." At this moment, Lu Ning suddenly discovered that this person was not useless except for his face. "How's it going? Is your skill good? I'll show you my skills another day." After scoring several goals in one go, Lu Xian turned around and proudly showed off to Lu Ning. Unexpectedly, the girl nodded and seriously commented, "The technology is indeed good." Ahem. The statement on the side couldn't help but choked on the saliva, and kept coughing desperately. What taboo topics did these two people talk about? Can he, a minor, hear this? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 53. Chapter 53. Your feeling is wrong. What are you doing? Lu Xian turned around and glanced at him. No Shushu immediately shook his head, took a peek at Lu Ning's face, and then quietly pulled Lu Xian aside and said, "Third brother, didn't you say you don't mean anything to Sister Ning?" Lu Xian glanced sideways at the other party. "How did you know that I was interested in her?" Statement, just, feeling. Lu Xian pursed his lips and was silent for a few seconds, then said to him, "Your feeling is wrong. Okay, Xu Shan touched his nose and glanced in Lu Ning's direction. I always felt that the atmosphere between these two people was a bit subtle. Perhaps he really thinks too much. Lu Ning watched for a while, and felt that she had mastered the key, and said to Lu Xian, "Let me try it." Hearing this, Lu Xian put away his golf club and stepped aside. Lu Ning stood in front of the table for a long time holding the cue stick, and only started to take advantage of it after he memorized the position of each ball. Although the posture cannot be called a special standard, except for missing the first shot, the second and third shots all dropped into the pocket. "Okay. You have some talent," Lu Xian couldn't help but praise. "He is worthy of being the disciple he taught himself." Lu Ning straightened up and said, "This has nothing to do with talent." Lu Xian couldn't help but raise his eyebrows when he heard this. "It's not a talent. How could it be that you knew it before? So, you just deliberately lied to me to teach you, right?" Lu Ning glanced at the other person. "What I mean is that this kind of thing doesn't require talent at all. You will get it after watching it a few times." Lu Xian curled his lips and smiled. "I know you are smart, but you can't do this just by looking at it. You have to play more to feel it." "There's nothing wrong with it," Lu Ning said. "Wanting to make a pocket is nothing more than finding the aiming point of the ball. According to the principles of physics, the pressure on an object is always perpendicular to the contact surface. When an object is pressured in a certain direction, of course it will produce acceleration in that direction. Moving in this direction. When the distance between the centers of the two circles is the sum of the radii of the two circles, there is only one contact point between the two circles, and this contact point is exactly on the line connecting the centers of the two circles. Then, according to the mathematical tangent theorem, the tangent line at any point on the circumference is always perpendicular to the line connecting that point to the center of the circle. We all know that the size of the cue ball and the target ball are the same. In this way, as long as the cue ball is aimed at the correct aiming point and hit, then after the cue ball moves to the aiming point, it will just touch the target on the surface of the target ball. The collide and the target ball is pocketed." Chu Nan and others were confused by the statements on the side and turned to look at Lu Xian. "Third brother, what is Sister Ning talking about? Aren't they playing table tennis? Why is it both physics and mathematics? How do you relax and not forget to discuss study? Are all top academics so eager to learn?" Lu Xian glanced at everyone with disgust. "I told you that if you are stupid, you should read more, otherwise you won't understand what others are saying. In short, what she means is that playing billiards is very simple, just find the right aim and control the angle and strength, that's it." Everyone looked at each other in shock. "We all know this, isn't this what playing pool is all about?" "Lu Xian, you know, but you don't know how to calculate." Xu Xiang immediately shouted with a loud voice, "Who in the table tennis game deliberately calculates this? Isn't it all based on feeling and experience? Just because you don't know how to do it doesn't mean that others don't know how to do it either." Lu Xian then glanced in Lu Ning's direction. End of this chapter. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 54. Chapter 54. Third brother, are you too protective of your shortcomings? The statement's gaze also fell on Lu Ning. After realizing what Lu Xian meant, his eyes widened and he said, "Isn't it right, Sister Ning? Playing table tennis is just for relaxation. If you still have to think about it, what does it matter? Doesn't it make the brain more tired? It's better to just go home and sleep." The next second, Lu Xian kicked him on the butt. "Okay, you're a scumbag, so you should stop questioning the lifestyle of other top students." She turned around and said, "Third brother, are you too protective of your shortcomings?" "I didn't say anything. I just wanted to tell Sister Ning that you should relax when you go out to play. You have to think about so many things and you are so tired. Lu Xian, can you care if others like it? What's more, what do you know about the joy of being a top student? Okay, Okay, I can't take care of it, so you can take care of it, right? The third brother looked like a hen guarding her young. Lucian, it's good that you know. Statement. Feeling sour. Coming out of the billiard room, Chunan greeted, "Third brother, do you want to go to the internet cafe to play games?" Statement, don't ask, if you ask, just don't go. Chunan's eyes immediately fell on Luning, who had just walked out one step behind. As if he had realized something, he smiled slightly, and the smile was quite intriguing. "I forgot, Sister Ning is here. The two of them have been going to and from school together almost every day since the year when Lu Ning moved in elementary school. The third brother likes to take her with him wherever he goes. The only place he doesn't take her with him is the internet cafe." Everyone asked him the reason, and the other person's answer at that time was, "That girl looks too well behaved, and a place like an internet cafe is not suitable for her." Lucien frowned slightly, glanced at the two of them, and said, "What are you two looking at? I'm telling you, even if this girl isn't here, I won't go." Oh dash. Statement and Chunan looked at each other. Both of them had smiles on their faces and deliberately prolonged their voices, which gave them a meaningful feeling. "It's clear that I don't believe what he said." Roll dash. When Lucien saw the appearance of the two of them, he directly raised his long legs, kicked one of them and said, "I think you two are just throwing salt into the pot." "What do you mean?" She turned around and asked Chunan. "Chunnan, he's saying that we have nothing to do." Sentence blinked, "Where are we free? Are we not telling the truth?" Chunan smiled, "Maybe some people don't want to admit it." Looking at the two people singing and singing together, Lucien's face couldn't help but darken, and he said directly, "Okay, get out of here." On the other side, Shen Yu was surrounding Lu Ning and said, "Sister Ning, didn't you move? Why did you appear with the third brother today?" Lu Ning, "Oh, I moved back again." Shen Yu couldn't help but his eyes lit up when he heard this. "So, you can play with Sister Ning again when you have nothing to do in the future." "Recently, because Sister Ning has moved, there are only a few of them every time we go out to play. I always feel like something is missing." Before Lu Ning could answer, a voice was heard from directly in front of the two of them, "What are you playing for? Have you never heard of playing with things to lose one's spirit?" The next second, Lu Ning's shoulder was hooked by the other party. "My sister is going to take the exam. People from Nanda, please don't delay her studies." Lucien came over at some point and walked to Lu Ning's side. He stretched out his long arms and hugged her shoulders from behind, almost encircling her whole body in his arms. Lu Ning couldn't help but stiffen. End of this chapter. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 55. Chapter 55, Like Without Knowing It. Hearing this, Shen Yu immediately shouted, "Third brother, you are typical of only allowing the state officials to set fires and not allowing the people to light lamps." He only wanted to play with Sister Ning to lose his morale. Third brother would have no problem bringing Sister Ning out by himself. Tisk, what is this? Lucien, that's fine if you want to say that. Shen Yu. Shameless, so shameless. As soon as the other party came closer, Lu Ning's body tightened unconsciously. The guy had done this action before, but for the first time Lu Ning felt that this action was too intimate. He almost immediately removed his hand from his shoulder, raised his head, glared at the other person, and said, "Who is your sister? How many times have I told you, can you stop calling me sister? Doesn't she deserve her name?" Lucien didn't pay much attention to her avoidance. He shrugged and said, "I'm used to it. Otherwise, what would I call you? Lu Xiaoning? Xiaoning or Xiaoningning?" Lu Ning twitched the corner of her mouth. "Can't you have a normal name?" "Lucien, how can a more normal name reflect our special relationship?" Lu Ning's face darkened. Who has a special relationship with you? Lucien raised his eyebrows and said, we eat at the same table every day and even lie on the same bed. Isn't the relationship special enough? You too. Shen Yu heard this and opened his mouth in an O shape. Did he accidentally hear some shocking secret? Lu Ning now realized what the other party said, and her face suddenly became colorful. It was so wonderful. He explained to Shen Yu with a dark face, it's not what you think. Then he glared at Lucien again, can you stop talking nonsense every day? Lucien, isn't what I said the truth? During the summer vacation in the first year of junior high school, you fell asleep reading in my room at noon. Didn't I just give you my bed to take a nap? Doesn't this count as lying on the same bed? Oh, by the way, I seem to remember more than just that one time. Lucien, shut up. Seeing the guy talking more and more enthusiastically, Lu Ning wanted to find a needle to sew this guy's mouth shut. Shen Yu. I always feel that these are not things he can hear. He coughed lightly, and when he saw that the two people's attention was not on him, he quietly ran to Chunan and Shan Yu and said, do you think there is something wrong with third brother and sister Ning today? Shang Xiang's eyes lit up, you feel it too. He had felt this way since he was inside. Chunan said in a calm tone, isn't it normal that these two people are not getting along? When did the third brother's attitude toward that girl become normal? Do you two need to make such a fuss? But didn't third brother say that he doesn't like sister Ning? She said as she glanced in the direction of the two people. Chunan smiled, emotions will change. If you didn't like her before, it doesn't mean you don't like her now, and it doesn't mean you won't like her in the future. It just makes sense. What's more, are you sure that third brother knows what liking means? Chunan raised his eyebrows and continued meaningfully. Shen Yu blinked and looked at each other, what do you mean? You mean, the third brother likes sister Ning without knowing it, the three of them said and looked in the direction of Lu Ning and Lucien. After a while, Shen Yu said, don't say it, it's really possible. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 56. Chapter 56 The Little Heartless One. After all, the third brother has never been in love. It's normal not to know what liking is. He thought he regarded sister Ning as his younger sister, but little did he know that things like feelings can sometimes change. Or maybe, under the guise of my sister, I had other thoughts and was just waiting to abduct the person back home. Everything is possible. You guys think, should we do something to help third brother? There was a hint of excitement in the tone of the statement. At the beginning, I vowed that I would only treat her as my sister, but if I have other thoughts later. Tisk, he can't wait to see the third brother slap him in the face. Chunan ruthlessly poured cold water on him and said, come on, you're a single, so don't come up with random ideas. Be careful, the more you help, the more trouble you will make. Besides, others can't help with this kind of thing, and we're not sure we're overthinking it. Maybe the third brother really thinks of me as my sister. Although he didn't think it was very similar. That's true, although he really wanted to see the third brother get slapped in the face, but if it ruined the good things of the third brother, he thought about it and gave it up. On the other side, Lu Ning glared at Lucien angrily, can you please stop talking nonsense next time? Lucien saw her hairy look and couldn't help but feel itchy. He rubbed her head hard and said, but what I said is obviously the truth. Finally, he looked at the girl's messed up hair. Inexplicably feeling a little guilty, he took back his hand and walked forward as if nothing had happened. Lu Ning didn't react until the guy passed by. She gritted her teeth and said, Lucien, you messed up my hair again. Chunan and the other three were planning to go to the internet cafe, so Lucien called Lu Ning and decided to take her home first. Lu Ning, however, stood still and asked Lucian, "Why don't you go to the internet cafe with them?" Lucian put his hands in his trouser pockets and said lazily, "You little heartless boy, I'm afraid you'll be bored if you go back alone." Lu Ning glanced at him and said, "But I plan to go with them." "What did you say?" Lucian's face froze, suspecting that he heard wrongly. Lu Ning repeated what she meant, "You heard me right, I said, I plan to go to the internet cafe with them." "You're not allowed to go." Lucian's face turned dark immediately. "Why?" Lu Ning looked at him suspiciously. "This person usually goes there often. Isn't it a bit unreasonable to not allow him to go? Don't you know that internet cafes prohibit minors from entering?" Lucian looked like those parents who object to their children entering internet cafes. Lu Ning glanced at him with disgust. "By asking this, do you doubt my IQ, or do you think you are much older than me? She is a minor, isn't he himself? Since they can go, it can be seen that there is a way." Lucian felt sorry for himself, a trace of embarrassment flashed across Jun's face, and he said bravely, "What kind of internet cafe do good students go to? Are you not going to take the entrance examination to Nanjing University?" Lu Ning looked at him with bright black and white eyes. "Didn't you say that proper relaxation can help improve learning efficiency?" Lucian couldn't help but choked. He was just shooting himself in the foot. He touched his nose and said, "I just farted. Just listen to it, but don't imitate it." Then he looked at her suspiciously. "You moved back here by yourself. Are you just thinking that no one will care about you, so you can do whatever you want? Otherwise, why would Hao Haoli suddenly think of going to an internet cafe? I'm telling you, don't even think about it. If you dare to go to the internet cafe, I will call Aunt Tang." End of this chapter. The school sweetheart soft green plum is sweet and wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 57. Chapter 57. My brother is not a bad person. Oh. Lu Ning's face was calm. Hearing the guy's threat, he didn't even move his eyebrows, then hit him. Through the years, Tang Li had always been kind to her, otherwise he wouldn't have let her move back alone. Lucian. This girl usually likes to use this trick to threaten her, but she didn't expect that it wouldn't work on herself. "No, why do you have to go to an internet cafe?" "Lu Ning, something's wrong." "Is there anything that I have to go to the internet cafe for?" Lucian asked. "Actually, it's not necessary to go. It's just that when she moved last time, Ms. Tang Li also cut off the internet at home. Before she had time to go through the restoration process, she originally planned to go to the internet cafe with them to check information. I didn't expect this guy to have such a big reaction." Lu Ning glanced at Lucian. Was she so afraid that she would learn bad things? The statement and others on the side watched the whole conversation between the two, and couldn't help but said, "Third brother, if Sister Ning wants to go, just let her go. With us watching, can we still let her be bullied?" "That's right, third brother, why are you acting like Sister Ning and her father? You just went to an internet cafe, what's the big deal?" In the end, Lucian compromised and said, "Okay, you can go if you want." He wasn't really her father, so he could really control her. Besides, her father doesn't care about her. The group then went to the internet cafe near the back door of the middle school. At present, the management and registration of internet cafes outside are relatively strict, and you generally need to have an ID card to enter. The internet cafe they went to had a somewhat behind-the-scenes boss, and students usually turned a blind eye. Sentence went to the front desk and asked the network administrator to open 5 machines. When the network administrator handed them the internet card, he accidentally glanced at Lu Ning, who was standing among a few people, and his eyes lit up. "What a beautiful little girl. She has long black hair and a straight face, the kind of pure face that is very popular on the internet recently. She looks cute and pretty. Like a little fairy." The other party's gaze stayed on Lu Ning's face for too long, and several other people couldn't help but notice it. Lu Xian frowned in displeasure, and directly pulled Lu Ning away from the front desk. Lu Xian and the others usually like to sit in the booth, but today is the weekend and there are more people in the internet cafe. The booths were all occupied, so the 5 of them had no choice but to use the machines outside. Because there were a lot of people, the locations were spread out. The only 2 machines that were close together were given to Lu Ning and Lu Xian. Other people's machines are also not far apart, but they are not close together. Boys only use the internet to play games. Although there are computers at home, the internet speed cannot match that of internet cafes, so everyone still prefers to come to internet cafes. After Lu Ning turned on her phone, she began to search for the information she needed. Lu Xian saw that she came to the internet cafe just to look up information and ignored her. Lu Ning found all the information and then went to the front desk to ask the network administrator for help in printing. While waiting for printing, a group of people came in at the door. The boy headed by them has short cherry blossom pink hair, which is very eye-catching. When the latter was looking for the network administrator to turn on his computer, he accidentally caught a glimpse of Lu Ning standing next to him, and his eyes lit up. Then he supported the bar with one hand, looked at Lu Ning from the side at a 45-degree angle, showed a smile that he thought was handsome, and started chatting up, "Beauty, this is your first time here? Why do I seem to have never seen you before?" End of this chapter. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 58. Chapter 58. Why should I give you face? Lu Ning glanced at the other party and said nothing. Seeing that she ignored him, the latter was not anxious. He changed his posture and continued, "Don't be afraid, Beauty. Brother is not a bad person. He just wants to say hello to you. Brother, I am very familiar with this area. Everyone here knows me. If you don't believe me, just ask someone. If you get into trouble here in the future, just tell me your brother's name and I'll make sure no one dares to bully you. By the way, I haven't introduced myself yet. My brother's name is..." Lu Ning didn't want to pay attention to the other party, but she knew that the other party was like a fly, buzzing in her ears. Especially when the other party used the word brother that she hated most to refer to himself. Finally, she couldn't bear it anymore, looked at the other person and said, "You are very noisy. Can you please be quiet?" The expression on the latter's face froze, and he felt that he had been put down. His eyes suddenly became sharp, and then he stood up straight, trying to use his height to put pressure on the other party and said, "Isn't this Beauty not giving you face?" Lu Ning glanced at the other party strangely, "Do we know each other?" When the latter saw her asking this question, he thought she was afraid of showing weakness. He couldn't help but curled his lips and said with a smile, "I didn't know him before, but don't we know him now? Just tell me your name." In other words, we don't know each other at all. In that case, why should we give you face? Lu Ning looked at the other party with a faint look, "Is there something wrong with your brain?" Her voice sounded soft, but it was particularly powerful, with a sharp coldness. The boy's smile suddenly froze on his face. Stinky girl, are you kidding me?" The network administrator on the side saw that the little fairy was being harassed and was afraid that she would suffer a loss, so he couldn't help but said to her rescue, "Hello, your information has been printed." "Thank you." Lu Ning took the information and planned to go back to her phone. "Stop," the red-haired man next to her stopped her. "Is there anything else?" Lu Ning raised her eyes. The latter blocked her way. "You tricked me, don't you just want to leave like this?" "What do you want?" There was a hint of impatience between Lu Ning's brows. Just as the red-haired man was about to speak, his clothes were suddenly tugged by the younger brother behind him and he said, "Boss, do you think this girl looks familiar?" Hearing this, the latter took a good look at Lu Ning, especially Lu Ning's face. He looked at it carefully several times and said, "What do you mean by that? Is it some young star who just debuted recently?" "No, we have met before," the younger brother reminded him in a low voice. "Have you seen it before?" The latter stared at Lu Ning's face again. "The more I look at it, the more familiar it becomes, but I just can't remember where I've seen it before." It was Lu Ning who called out the other party's name first. "Are you Zhao Tian? The one with the hair stained by grandma's gray?" Zhao Tian narrowed his eyes. "Do you know me?" "Lu Ning, I have an impression. After all, not many people have been beaten by me." Behind Zhao Tian, the younger brother who had just spoken suddenly pointed at Lu Ning and said loudly, "Boss, I remembered, she is the girl who was with those boys in the statement." When the other party said this, Zhao Tian also remembered it. After all, this was the first time he was beaten by a girl in his life. The key was that he was beaten by a little girl who looked like a primary school student. It can be regarded as a dark history in his life. "For a long time, I couldn't help but feel itching when I thought about this girl." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 59. Chapter 59, Do You Dare to Touch One of My Men? So it's you. Zhao Tian looked at Lu Ning in front of him. New hatred and old hatred made him look at the other person with fire in his eyes. "Lu Ning, it's me. So do you want to fight again?" "Stinky girl, don't be too arrogant, don't think that I can't really cure you." He knew that Stinky girl was good at healing, but there were so many of them, and there was only one of them. He didn't believe that she could escape unscathed this time. "You have also seen that you are only one person, and there are so many of us. Are you sure that you can win if you take action?" "Of course, I am not the kind of person who is difficult to talk to. If you are willing to apologize to me properly, if you call me good brother again, I won't argue with you." "Lu Ning, your request is too difficult and I can't do it. How about we just fight?" "Zhao Tian, I have never seen a girl who likes fighting so much. I'm giving you an extra chance because you're a girl. Don't toast me and you'll be punished with a drink." "Lu Ning, sorry, I don't drink, so I won't drink the toast or the fine wine." Zhao Tian couldn't stand it when he saw that the other party was so disrespectful, especially in front of all the younger brothers. He immediately said with a ruthless look on his face, "Smelly girl, don't blame me for being rude to you." "Who do you want to be rude to?" The next second, a lazy voice was heard. Lucian had just finished playing a game and saw that the girl hadn't gone back yet, but he looked around and saw that the girl was blocked by Zhao Tian and his group at the front desk. Seeing the other party, Zhao Tian's mood instantly became worse, and he warned in a cold voice, "Lucian, this is a matter between me and this girl. I advise you not to mind your own business." To say that the person he hates the most is Lucian, none of them. It's really unlucky to run into each other wherever you go. But he saw Lucian reaching out to pull Lu Ning to him, putting a hand on her shoulder, looking at Zhao Tian across the way. "Then open your eyes and let me see clearly, this is my person. Do you dare to try? Just give it a try, don't think I'm afraid of you." The two of them usually kept telling each other off, but now the other party jumped out to meddle in other people's business, not to mention that in front of his younger brother, Zhao Tian was even more impossible. Lost momentum. "Lucian, I've long disliked you. If we can, let's go out and fight alone." "Lucian, don't be alone, let's go together, otherwise I'm afraid you'll lose badly. After all, it's boring to see you leading people away in despair every time." "Lucian, don't think you are really that powerful. Do you believe that I asked you to leave sideways today?" The latter was so angry that he gritted his teeth, his face was ashen, and his face was ferocious. However, Lucian still spoke unhurriedly, with a tone that said he was so angry that he wouldn't pay for his life. Don't get too excited. It's normal to lose in a fight. I won't laugh at you because of it. It's you who is embarrassed in public. Isn't that a bit shameless for a girl? Of course, you can't be shameless for a day or two. As for you asking me to leave sideways, okay, I'm here, you can try it. Don't think that I dare not. Zhao Tian clenched his fists, his eyes fell on Lu Ning beside him, and he quickly sneered, okay, since you want to be a hero, wouldn't it be a pity that I can't help you? How about this, if you lose, just give your place to me. Lucian, it's not that great. I'll accompany you whenever you want to fight. As for my people, do you deserve to be concerned about them? End of this chapter. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 60. Chapter 60. Who asked you to bring her? Lucian, you are looking for death. The latter was completely angered, waving his fist and trying to hit Lucian in the face. However, Lucian took over and held the opponent's wrist instead, saying, "Don't do it here, go out and fight." The opponent unclenched his fist and pointed to an and when he landed, "Okay, whoever runs away first today will be Sun Tzu." Lucian, "Don't worry, I won't run away." Then he said to Lu Ning, "Stay here well and don't come out." After saying that, he let go of Zhao Tian's hand and walked out first. Zhao Tian moved his wrist, looked at the other party's figure with a gloomy face, and then scanned Lu Ning's body. Then he called to the group of people behind him and said, "Follow me, I must give you a good treatment today. Teach him a lesson, so he knows who has the final say in this matter." Lu Ning glanced at the direction the group was walking out, then walked to Shen Yu's machine, knocked on the table and said, "Stop playing, get up and move around." "Sister Ning," the latter took off his headphones and looked at her doubtfully. "Lu Ning, Zhao Tian, do you remember? We just met the other party looking for trouble, and Lucian went out with them." The group of people often had conflicts, and Shen Yu was naturally no stranger to each other. Not only are they not strangers, but they are also enemies. What does that grandson want to do?" Hearing Lu Ning's words, he immediately lost his composure. He quickly stood up from his seat and went to pull Yan Shu and Chu Nan. "Stop playing around, others are provoking you." "Who is so short-sighted?" After hearing this, Chu Nan and Chu Nan also stood up. By the time the group of people chased them into the alley next to the internet cafe, there was already action inside. There was only one person in Lucian, but there were 7 or 8 people on the other side, who were surrounding Lucian in the middle. Because the alley is narrow and there are many people, it is difficult to perform. Only half of the people take action, while the other half is watching from the side, ready to step forward at any time. Since it didn't take long to start, Lucian didn't suffer much. But in the eyes of the 3 statements, the other party made it clear that they were bullying the few with more. Why are you so shameless when you hit one of so many people? You really think we have no one here?" Without thinking, the 3 of them rolled up their sleeves and rushed forward. Although they were outnumbered by each other, with third brother and sister Ning around, they had nothing to fear. Shen Shu took the lead and rushed into the team. After knocking down the person at the end, he turned around and saw Lu Ning still standing at the entrance of the alley. He couldn't help but howled, "Sister Ning, why don't you come up? Come on, beat me up, these turtles are dead." Lucian had just punched someone here. When he heard his voice, he immediately turned around and said with anger in his eyes, "What's the ghost's name? Who asked you to bring her? You actually asked a girl to help you during a fight. You are really promising." Then he looked at Lu Ning and said, "Didn't I tell you to stay in and don't come out?" Shang Xiang felt a chill on his scalp, and then he remembered that in front of the third brother, Sister Ning had always been a good girl. But Sister Ning is not an ordinary girl, she said. She felt the need to defend herself. He had seen the opponent fight with his own eyes, and his stance was more standard than the others. It's just that at this time, Lucien naturally didn't have the heart to listen to what he had to say. Because he was afraid that the fight would scare Luning, Lucien couldn't help but speed up the movements of his hands, thinking of a quick fight. With the addition of the three statements, almost everyone started to move, and the scene became chaotic for a while. End of this chapter.